If you live in California, for example, you live in LA, you live in the Bay Area, you live in San Diego, all very, very expensive real estate markets. I think a common thing that we saw yesterday was people saying, yeah, look, I live in LA and I cannot fathom or I don't know how I would be able to manage a property out of state. Arizona, Nevada, Utah, Colorado, Texas, all out to Pennsylvania, for example. What would you say to that person? Welcome to STR Like the Best. I'm your host, Michael Chang. I have my co-host here, Elizabeth. Elizabeth, welcome.
Hi, everyone. Glad to be back.
If it's your first time listening to our podcast, Liz and I have been running our short-term rental portfolio for the last 10 years. We own a number of short-term rentals, and we have this podcast to demystify short-term rental investing for folks that, if you are brand new, if you have some experience, we want to talk about how we've approached our business, how we built it, how we remotely manage our properties from New York City. And hopefully, this will help you better invest both your time and money in the right properties, in the right systems, so that just doesn't become a second job for you. And also, you're able to achieve what we call the holy trinity STR investing. Your property will cash flow, it will appreciate. And if you use the STR tax loophole, you will save a significant amount of taxes in that first year, especially if you are working a full time job and earning W 2 income. So if that's you, tune in, subscribe, and we look forward to hearing from you in the comments. Liz and I, we did a presentation yesterday, about a 2-hour presentation. We had 467 people show up yesterday. So that was really cool to talk to all you guys out there that are really interested in short-term rentals. So what was the big question that came up, Liz?
Yes, I think consistently yesterday, what we saw on the live training was a lot of people live in high property value, high tax state like New York, California, and paying a lot of taxes. But what they keep saying is, I can invest here. Property is too expensive, taxes too high, regulations too strict. It's not possible for me to even buy a short-term rental here. So I'm done. But I think the narrative here today, what we want to talk about is out-of-state investing is possible. And it's a very viable way to help you compound wealth and build your real estate portfolio. Eventually, the cash flow hopefully can replace your W-2 income so you can get more time freedom back. That's what we have done in the last 10 years. We live in New York City. High taxes, high property value, doesn't make sense to buy short-term rental with the regulation, but we invest out of state. So I think this episode we want to dedicate to really share our experience around this.
If you live in California, for example, you live in LA, you live in the Bay Area, you live in San Diego, all very, very expensive real estate markets. I think a common thing that we saw yesterday was people saying, yeah, like look, I live in LA and I cannot fathom or I don't know how I would be able to manage a property out of state. Arizona, Nevada, Utah, Colorado, Texas, all out to Pennsylvania, for example. What would you say to that person? There was like 10 or 12 people that said that yesterday too. So
The first thing I would say is a mindset shift here would be the first thing, because I'm just thinking back from my own journey from the very beginning 10 years ago. I thought it was impossible too, till I start meeting people, talking to people, and start hearing other people are doing it. So it's not the first rodeo. If other people can do it, why can't I? And really just believe that I can do it if this is something that I want. I think by having that will be a pretty big unlock for everything else comes after.
yeah, no, the mindset shift for sure is the most important thing. If you believe you can't do it, you'll kind of never do it. You have to have that self belief in yourself, and it's helpful to see other people that are similar to you that have done it before. In our STR Like the Best mentorship program, we have probably 30 to 40 clients that live in California and that have either purchased or running their short-term rentals out of state. So along that vein, what has changed between when we started in 2016 and now 10 years later, 2026?
Mhm.
What are some of the things that, if someone wasn't as up to date with what's kind of the latest and greatest in short-term rentals, especially on the technology side, they might be holding on to dated mode of thinking.
I do think in the last 10 years, what has changed the most is the availability of information and resources has been growing in this remarkable speed. you have a question, you almost can get the answer within your fingertips. There are so many great communities now out there, even with the free resources between, let's say, YouTube training or between just like local community, Facebook group, school groups. There are a lot of great information that you couldn't find 10 years ago that you had to really go out there in person to meet up. Now today everything's online. So the time frame for you to execute this strategy actually shrinks because you have all this information.
Mm.
You can get this information much faster.
And how about on the technology side? So definitely information a lot more available, like right now, right? If you're listening to podcasts, like obviously podcasts are a lot bigger than it was 10 years ago. But what about from the technology side, from managing? I think for
Mhm.
one, for me, it's you buy $1 million property, it's out of state. You feel nervous that what if something happens? I can't get there. And it's a big part of it's a big investment and it's very scary. So maybe talk about just that fear of distance and how technology can help with that.
That fear of distance is very natural, very normal. We had that when we first visited the Smoky Mountain National Park to buy our first property there. We have never heard of it, that place. We were ready to buy. So we said we would not leave there without contract that's being an offer that's being accepted. So we did that. Technology wise, today it's not that hard. There's digital lock, so you're able to control everything through your phone, open the door, see who's in, who's coming out, and you build your team down there. You need to network. And I do think that's one of the most important part of your operation or investing out of state is the people that you hire and you know.
Definitely the smart locks are huge. They're very reliable. You can control access in and out of your property. There's a log. There's software out there that will automatically generate new codes for new guests and disable codes for prior guests. It basically will know, okay, this person's checking out today. Their code's going to disable at say like 3 o'clock, and a new person coming in, their code is going to activate, say at noon. You don't have someone that can get unauthorized access to your property. And the other one is smart cameras, right? I mean, they're so cheap and ubiquitous now. You can buy it on Amazon, $30, $40. Yeah, as long as you have decent internet, you can always know what's going on. You have two cameras outside your property. You can always know what's going on there real time. So I always ask myself, like, what can I do here that I would be able to do at the property? Obviously, there's a fear part, but just practically speaking, and I just try to solve it from that perspective. I want to see what's going on. Okay, well then I have a couple cameras. Okay, I want to make sure no one gets in. Okay, I have that. Right. I want to make sure the heat's not running and our AC's not running when no one's there. Smart thermostat software. I need to see what's going on there. To your point, like your team, your cleaner, your handyman, there are other services actually that will just go out there for you too, especially in a big market like the Smoky Mountains. So everything that I would want to do, either can do with technology or just hiring someone out there. There is that fear part, right? Like, hey, but I still just really want to see it. And I'll just tell you after, many years doing this, I go out there now, it's like, okay, great. It's like, you kind of like, okay, you can touch and feel it. Okay, it's here. And then you go home. It's not worth the flight, car, hotel, time away from your family. It's just so much more accessible now. The technology is better and it's way cheaper. And just everything you can do if you're watching like just on your phone, any normal smartphone can do this. It was possible like 5 years ago, but it wasn't as efficient. But the last 2 years, it's gotten so much better.
There's always edge cases, but I think there's always edge cases. Doesn't matter what asset class you invest in, long-term rental, mid-term rental, short-term rental, stock, there are always the edge case fear that people have, right? So that part, I think it's a mental mindset that we have to overcome as investor as well. There's always some sort of risk associated with it. What if there's a party? Well, now we have noise monitor now that you can install inside a property as well to moderate, to prevent big parties, right? So
So actually, on that point, what are you going to do when someone's doing a big party? You're going to drive there yourself and break it up? Like I wouldn't. right? I would call Airbnb or call the cops, call my cleaner, call someone and go and do it, right? So it's more just like getting the alert, like, oh, okay, like something's going on. And I think you're right. That's like a big fear that people have, like, oh, what if someone throws a big party? Are you really going to be the one that's going to go and do that and break it up? Or I mean, you would just call someone anyways, right? So it's really just I need to be notified of it. And I think another one is too is where if you don't open up your mindset on being able to invest out of state, it's really hard. Your choices are just so limited, especially if you live in a high cost area like California, for example. Like there's stuff around it just doesn't really work unless you have like, a lot more money. You need to be able to invest out of state. If you want to do real estate, just broad like you need to invest out of state. That's just where more of the opportunity. I mean, that's just where more of the opportunities are. I mean, New York State, like, we have some stuff around us here that works okay. Most of our properties are in out of state in Pennsylvania and Tennessee.
Yeah, and it has been, and I think I talked about this yesterday too. It has forced us in a way to think more creatively because we know we can't get there within 2 hours, or it's a half day of travel to get there from the flight. It forced us to think creatively. How do I solve the issue in front of me? If there's a guest conflict, something broke in the house, what do I need to do next? There's always a solution.
Exactly. I think that's the mindset part. And also but also it's just experience, right? So I think well, I know from documenting all our experiences and have checklists and templates for our students, and our entire Airbnb management team actually sits in the Slack channel with our clients when they go live. So any questions they have,
Mhm.
they're able to just ask them directly and get an answer. They don't have to kind of go online and do the research. Like we've probably seen like 99.9% of guest cases. So, we can be helpful there. So another thing that people talk about is maybe as I would think through is, okay, so I can invest out of state, get over that fear. All right, I know this technology and process, I can learn that, or do more research and find a community that can help me. How do people get their hours? Like you need to do a minimum of 100 hours and no one else does more than you. You're not out there cleaning. Maybe some thoughts on how you can get those hours even if you invest out of state.
Yes, and that's a good one because a lot of people think, well, if you don't live there, remotely managing it, there's no hours. But there are a lot of desktop work or facilitation through phone calls, through apps, through your phone that needs to be done. The laptop or admin work, those take time, right? So, for example, when you're on the phone with contractor, vendor, sourcing, hiring, anything related to the operation, those hours count. Even you're talking to them on the phone, those hours count. Preparing the guest experience for your guests, communicating with them on the app, create a digital guide for your guests. All of those little things. It sounds little, but they actually takes time to perfect, right? So those counts, and you will be surprised.
We got a lot of questions on taxes too. So I'm going to break this down a little bit. Once you close, there's two real main phases, right? So one is you got to hit your material participation hours during that first year. That's generally when you want to take that benefit. You want to get the big tax benefit from the SCR tax loophole, right? So after you close, which means after you buy the property, there's a setup phase, right? And that's when a lot of your hours can be done. Like what Liz is saying, set up your guest guide, design work, building your team, helping set up all those things that need to be done take hours to do, right? Takes real hours to do. One, you want to obviously document that. And then two is the managing part. Now that you're live, the hours are going to be fewer. There's still stuff that you're dealing with. Once you kind of get your systems dialed in, we kind of asked our clients to work with us and have gone live. It's an hour or two of work a week. So it's not, it's work, but it's not a ton. Usually when people check in, they have some questions and they leave. You're kind of working with your cleaners to kind of get that done, or to coordinate and make sure everything is done properly. Between setup slash launch time, managing the property, plenty of hours. I think our students average over like 200 plus hours once they kind of get done. So there's plenty of hours there.
And most of them also out of state.
Almost all of them, almost
Yeah,
everyone's out of state. I was kind of just thinking, do we have any clients that are managing and we have some clients that are like manage no, we have a few that manage in state on the West Coast, but that's I would say like less than 5%. Almost everyone else
yeah, very
is
few.
is out of state. Well, the 100-hour rule, right? 100 hours and no one else can do more than you. Say between me and you, we have 250 hours. Like what's to prevent someone else to do more than us? So let's start with the design side, designer and setup side. So what are some strategies that can be utilized to make sure that, those folks aren't doing more hours than you?
Design, right? So if you hire a design company, right, usually the design itself takes about a week to two for the designer to do. And usually if they have a big team, there are different touch points between different people. It's really hard for them to get to that 250 hours
Or even 100 hours. Let's
or
say
even
100 hours.
100 hours or even
I mean,
100 hours, right?
yeah.
So like design is not, in my view, is not the considered too big of a risk in terms of the hours. Some people may argue, then what about cleaner? If you have cleaner,
Oh, well, how
that's a
about
big
setup?
one.
How about setup? I'll talk about how about setup though, right? Because they're there, they're working on it, right? So those are real hours, right? How do people think about that? How do we, how do you think through that?
Yeah, so if you hire a team to help you set up, and if you are project managing the whole process, you're still there on the ground overseeing the project. Those hours still count. Project managing is a real job, right? You'll be there on the ground. We have done it multiple times. You're on the ground 10 hours a day, coordinating between vendor, make sure they're doing things right, everything's working, everything is doing the way you want it. That's real work. So those hours still count. Even after they leave, the trash out, all of those
To
coordination,
set the organization for the next day too. Like this is real work. Yeah.
a lot of organization and planning. You're not the one doing the hammering, but there's still plenty of other type of work that's involved.
Sorry, which is why we recommend, when after you close on a property, when they're working on it, that you're down there. And then this brings us to the point which I just want to emphasize here. If anyone here, I know there are other people online that talk about, oh hey, you can get these tax benefits and you don't have to do any work, we'll do everything for you. Where it's like, we'll manage it for you, we'll set it up for you, we'll do everything for you. All you do is just pay us and then you can take advantage of tax benefits. Now, you can, of course, pay someone to help you find the property, set it up, and manage it. That's totally fine. But what I can tell you is you cannot take the tax benefits associated with the SCR tax loophole. So basically, you cannot take that benefit and apply it to your active income, your W-2 income, your business income. Like that is not allowed. Anyone that tells you it is candidly not being transparent with you because ultimately the risk lies on you. Right? They can tell you something, IRS isn't going to audit you for like 3, 4 years later. And then when you get that letter, those people will be long gone and you're the one holding the bag. So please do not ask your CPA and really, really dig in when someone's coming to you with something that's too good to be true. Hey, just pay us, X dollars. We'll do everything for you and you get the tax benefit. It's not true,
Mhm.
and you don't want to be left holding the bag there. And we're being just like very direct with you on that because I don't want anyone to get hurt. And two is there's no free lunch, right? Like, if you want to offset your active income, like your work income, ours is like, okay, well, you can do that, but you need to have a business, right, where you're actively participating too, right? Those two things have to match up. And if it's too good to be true, I get all this benefit. I don't do any of the work. Life just doesn't work that way.
And when you say to do everything for you, meaning to do the property management also for you, basically acting as a owner to do all the communication, coordinate all the cleaner, handyman, everything associated with the house. If you do that, then you are passive. You're pretty, yeah, where are your hours? You're pretty passive in this case. That's why we really teach how to self manage remotely. That's kind of how our framework works and why it has worked for us for the last 10 years.
Exactly, and life changes, so what we're saying is in that first year you buy the property, it's 2026 right now, that first year you buy the property, yes, you have to self-manage it yourself. You have to do that. You have to manage it yourself, right? We teach you how to do that, or you can learn how to do that, and then, obviously there's the setup part. But life changes, right? You move, family, personal health, all these things. The way the IRS rules are written is that maybe the second or third year, you decide that, look, life has changed. I won the lottery and I'm going to go move somewhere else and enjoy my life. You can hire someone to manage it for you then, right? But it can't
Yes.
be part of the plan that, okay, hey, I'm going to do this. And on January 2nd, the next year, I'm going to give it to a property manager. Like the IRS doesn't like that and says like, hey, you
Yeah.
never really intended to do that. What you need to do is, but you can, later that year, maybe something happened and you can switch it over. One, I don't even think like, okay, hey, I'm locked in forever. I have to do this. It's just, but definitely that first year you have to do it. And afterwards, if life changes, it's okay. and you can hire someone else to do it for you and still keep the tax benefit.
No, just saying the intention is really important. How you think about this. Yeah.
Yeah, it can't be part of a plan, exactly. And then I think the cleaner part, right? I think that's the last one is like, okay, well, you're out of state or even in state, you're not the one doing the cleaning. Like my cleaners are going to do like have more hours than me because say it takes 3 hours to clean it. They do it twice a week at 6 hours. I'm only doing 1 or 2 hours a week. Then they're going to subsume my hour. What are some strategies around that?
Yes, so one strategy is hire a bigger cleaning company, right? They have rotation of different cleaner every time assigned to different property, depends on their turnover list. So that's a really straightforward and probably the easiest way to make sure you follow the material participation rules.
And then some ways to document that, because you need to document those hours too, is hours that other people do for you too, is you always say is just have a camera where you can kind of see people go in and out. So, track to different people. And then if you have a you should have a smart lock, your smart lock, have a different code for each cleaner. So when they come in, they're dialing in with their code, right? 1 2 3 4. Like my code is say 1 2 3 4. Liz, your code is say, 8888. We're logging in every single time. So they come in, they open the door, they log in, leave, they put in a code, they log out. And then you have in your system, you have a code of when that code logged in and logged out, right? So you can show the IRS that, hey, we're managing our cleaners, like, and they don't have more than hours than we do, right? This is that, Michael's code is this, Liz's code is this, and then you can track that. So there are other strategies like this that we've thought through that one help you clearly document that you are managing out, although you're managing out of state, you are tracking the hours, and that there's a real time log, and it doesn't kind of take you forever to do it because you can just download the log and then organize it really easily to count the hours per code slash per person. So it's kind of like back in the day. Liz, you're probably too young for this one, but before you had to. Some of my jobs in college, you have to get a card and go to the thing and put it into the timestamp, and would say like when you checked into work and when you checked out of work. So a modern way of the old clocking systems.
I have seen those. Yes.
Yes. And maybe let's talk about, and as we wrap up the conversation, just as like if you are a spouse that stays at home, right, while the other spouse is working, how that is, and you're managing a property out of state, like, is that a good fit for the strategy? And is that a good fit for you?
Yeah, we talk about this quite often because a lot of our audience, I think they're a married couple, and my one might be a stay-at-home parent. And what you don't know is you are really very well positioned to utilize this strategy. So if one spouse is a high income W-2 earner, the other one is a stay-at-home parent, this strategy cannot be any better. You guys can really tag team on this, and the stay-at-home parent can be the one that fulfill the material participation hour, and the W-2 income high earner parent will be the one bringing the fund, actively funding the buying the property. At the same time, by fulfilling the material participation by the other spouse, you can offset a really large portion of your taxes, right? And then that tax saving become the fund for your next property. And this can just become a system to build your portfolio over and over again. You buy one every single year. You executed this strategy at a very high level. And this is not to say if you both are working parents, it doesn't work. It still works, but it just one is likely a little easier for one parent to fulfill those hours versus two parents are both working. It's less flexibility. You have to be a little more creative there.
It really is quite powerful as a married couple to do the STR tax stuff. And we've talked about that in some of the prior episodes that you can go back and listen to. And there's obviously some really kind of cool benefits of working on something with your spouse together, especially if you have kids. Everyone's kind of focused on work and then the kids, but it's a different level to the relationship that comes in, and a different kind of like shared success, which it's pretty cool, doing something with your significant other. Not everyone's married, of course, and you can definitely do it on your own if you're single. And we have plenty of people that do that. It's just like if you're married and you're listening to this, like you definitely get an advantage here. So that's really nice. Liz, any last minute pearls of wisdom before we sign off today on managing out of state?
Yes, it really is. You can do it. Out of state investing is not that scary after all. There are plenty of resources, investor network, community out there to get you started. Really, it's not that scary.
If you care about this more, please subscribe to the podcast, and we do this every week. We have a program that where we help our clients who are, many of them are married, live in high cost of living states like California and New York, but really nationwide. If you're interested in short-term rentals, how to invest, how to take advantage of the tax benefits, and we have a link in the show notes, and schedule a call with us. We're happy to have it schedule a free consultation and see your situation and see it'd be a good fit for you. So, if there's something you're interested, please click on the link below, and we look forward to speaking with you and hopefully one day working together. Everyone, thank you again for your for listening today, and we'll see you in the next episode.